She found out on a Tuesday. Not from a text. Not from a friend. Not from some dramatic confrontation at the door. She found out because she went to surprise him at work with lunch, the way she had done 100 times before, and the receptionist looked at her with that specific kind of pity that you only give someone whose world is about to collapse. He left early, the receptionist said, with his girlfriend. His girlfriend. She stood there holding a paper bag of food she had spent 40 minutes preparing, and she realized, in that single, silent moment, that she had never actually known the man she was about to marry. Let that sit for a second. For years. An engagement. A future she had already started building in her mind. The house, the children, the life. And in one sentence, from a woman she barely knew, all of it became fiction. They had been together for 4 years. For years of shared dinners and inside jokes and conversations about children's names. For years of meeting each other's families, building each other's confidence, showing up at 2 a.m. when things fell apart. She was the kind of woman who loved completely. Not carelessly, completely. When she was in, she was all the way in. She remembered the small things. His coffee order. The way he needed silence for 20 minutes after work before he could talk about his day. The specific playlist that helped him sleep. She paid attention the way only someone who genuinely loves another person pays attention. And he knew that about her. He knew she trusted him without condition. He knew she would never check his phone, never question his whereabouts, never assume the worst. Not because she was naive, because she had chosen him deliberately in love. To her, meant extending the full weight of that choice. He used every single part of that against her. The other woman had been there for 2 of those 4 years. Not a brief mistake. Not a moment of weakness. Not a drunk night that spiraled into something he immediately regretted. 2 years of deliberate, calculated deception, separate plans, separate memories, a separate version of himself that she never once suspected existed. He had 2 phones. She found that out later. 2 phones, 2 calendars, 2 sets of lies so carefully constructed that they never once collided. He was not a man who had lost control of his emotions. He was a man who had built an entire architecture of deception and maintained it, brick by brick, every single day for 2 years. He had proposed to her 8 months before she found out. Got down on one knee in the restaurant where they had their first date. Cried when she said yes. Real tears, she was certain of it. Called his mother from the table. Sent a voice note to his best friend. Posted a photo with her hand in his, and the caption that said she was his forever. 8 months later, she was standing outside his office holding his lunch, being looked at with pity by a woman who knew more about her life than she did. Here is what nobody tells you about this kind of betrayal. The hardest part is not the cheating. The hardest part is the rewriting. When you discover that someone has been lying to you for 2 years, not occasionally, not carelessly, but deliberately and consistently, your brain does not just process the present. It goes back. It excavates every memory you thought was real and holds it up to new light. That holiday where he seemed distracted. She had assumed he was stressed about work. She had given him space. She had been kind about it. That birthday where he left the dinner early. He said his friend had a crisis. She had told him to go. She had packed him leftovers. That night he did not come home until 3 a.m. and said it was a work event that ran late. She had stayed up, made him tea, sat with him while he told her about a work event that never happened. Every single memory gets contaminated. You are not just losing the future you planned. You are losing the past you lived. And that specific grief, is something that most people who have not experienced it simply cannot understand. It is not just heartbreak. It is the complete collapse of your own reality. The person you thought you knew, the relationship you thought you had, the memories you thought were real, all of it dissolves at once. Grief researchers call it ambiguous loss. The person is still alive, still physically present, but everything you believed about them is gone. And you cannot mourn them the normal way because there is no funeral, no closure, no agreed-upon moment where the world acknowledges that something real has died. You just carry it. She did not cry when he finally admitted it. She had confronted him that same evening, calmly, without screaming, without throwing anything. She had simply placed his lunch on the table between them and asked him one question. He lied first. Of course he did. Then she told him what the receptionist had said, and she watched his face do something she had never seen it do before. Not guilt, not remorse. Calculation. He was calculating in real time how much she knew and how much he could still contain. She saw it happen, and in that moment something in her went very, very quiet. She sat across from him at the kitchen table where they had eaten 1,000 meals together, and she felt completely, utterly hollow. Because you cannot be angry at a stranger. And that night, for the first time, she realized that is exactly what he was. She did not take him back. Not because she was not tempted. She was. For years of love does not disappear overnight. And there is a specific cruelty in the fact that your feelings do not update as fast as the truth does. She still loved him for months after she left. She grieved him the way you grieve someone who died. Except he was still alive, still sending messages, still calling from numbers she did not recognize, still telling her she was the one he actually wanted. That part is important. Because people who deceive at this level do not stop when they are caught. They recalibrate. The lie changes shape. Suddenly, she is the love of his life. Suddenly, the other woman meant nothing. Suddenly, he is broken without her, and she needs to understand that what they had was real even if everything around it was not. She changed her number. She moved out of the flat they had been about to sign a joint lease on. She told exactly 3 people what happened. Her sister, her closest friend, and a therapist she started seeing 6 weeks later. And she did something that surprised even herself. She did not tell his family. She did not post about it. She did not try to destroy him the way he had destroyed her. She just left. Quietly. Completely. Finally. And 18 months later she sat in a different city, in a life she had built entirely from the rubble of that Tuesday. And she said, and I want you to sit with this. She said the betrayal was the most painful thing that had ever happened to her. And also the most clarifying. Because for the first time in 4 years, she was building something that belonged only to her. No version of herself edited for someone else's comfort. No love given to someone who was spending it on a lie. Just her, exactly as she was, building forward. So here's the question I want to leave you with tonight. We talk about revenge. We talk about exposure. We talk about making people pay for what they did to us. But what does the psychology actually tell us about people who deceive at this level? Not once, not impulsively, but consistently, over years, while maintaining a completely convincing alternate reality. Research on long-term deception in relationships shows one consistent finding. People who sustain this kind of lie are not doing it because they are confused about their feelings. They are doing it because they have learned, somewhere, at some point, that they can hold 2 realities simultaneously without consequence. And the only thing that breaks that pattern is consequence. Not anger, not tears, not confrontation. Consequence. She was his consequence. Not because she destroyed him, but because she removed herself so completely that he had to sit inside the reality he had created, alone, with no version of her left to manipulate. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is the one that looks like silence. Sometimes walking away so completely that someone has nothing left to work with, no access, no reaction, no version of you available to them anymore, is the most devastating thing you can do to a person who relied on your trust to sustain their lie. Think about that. And if something in this story felt familiar, if something in the last 10 minutes sat in a place in your chest that you recognize, leave a comment below. Not because I need the engagement, but because the person sitting in their car right now listening to this at midnight needs to know they are not alone. I will see you in the next one.